overtime pay for truck drivers, is it good? Is it bad? We don't know, but we're going to try to dive into it and see what we can figure out today. Well, welcome back to Another Dimension. I'm Quinn.
I'm Trask.
And that's Taylor in the background.
Taylor in the back.
Taylor's your mic on?
My mic is on this week.
Okay, good.
We rolling.
Taylor, how long does it take a drop of water to travel to Mississippi?
90 days and 4 hours.
There you go.
You Googled that.
I just guessed the 4 hours part.
So we're talking about driver overtime today.
Yes, hot topic this week is there is a bipartisan bill that is trying to get pushed through the House and the Senate, I believe.
Yes.
Back up. In 1938, there was... beep, beep, there beep. Was 1938 was the overtime law, right?
Yep.
Anybody, so they over 40 hours got paid time and a half. However, truck drivers
were exempt
and farming were exempt. I'm sure there were others, but we're talking about trucking. So truck drivers were exempt. Now the bipartisan law is trying to get pushed through to change that and pay drivers overtime over 40 hours.
So basically every truck driver in America, 95%.
Yeah.
I don't know that number, but...
I mean, part-time drivers work 40 hours.
Right.
So
what does that do?
Go. What do you think?
A couple things. I mean, one, this industry is already tight. We've talked about the pot being so big, only so big. How do we pass that on to consumers or customers? Obviously, rates are going to have to increase. Instantly, I went to how many companies are going to switch drivers over to salary positions to avoid that. No longer getting paid by the mile or whatever, your strict salary, here's what you're expected to do. If you go above and beyond, maybe you get a bonus or whatever that may be. Next is, are they going to hire more drivers to complete the same amount of work?
Cut the hours, basically.
Cut the hours. In theory, those all seem to work in my head, but we all know that we're battling a quote-unquote driver shortage. Are we going to be able to find more drivers to do the same amount of things? Our customers going to have to get more carriers, I should say. Our carriers going to have to get more crafty with maybe they have more terminals. That may work for a big dog like a Schneider or a TMC of the world.
At what cost?
At what cost, yep. But for a mom and pop or a smaller business, it's not practical to open up multiple terminals or multiple areas to have other drivers. Mm-hmm. Those are my initial thoughts. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, simply put, if we're looking at it, all right, most truck drivers are paid by the mile.
Right.
So are you going to say they're making 50 cents a mile, $1 a mile, whatever that is?
Yep.
If it's 50 cents a mile, are they going to get paid 75?
At what
point? And I don't know that. I think, so I want to start this by saying, I think if we're going to compare apples to apples in industries, construction workers, professional drivers,
warehouse
whatever,
workers.
Yes. If everybody else is getting paid overtime over 40 and that's a standard, then I think truck drivers should as well.
Fair.
Okay. Which will cause some obstacles, right? So we pay by the hour, which even for our over-the-road guys, which is kind of rare.
Should be a clean transition in our
pretty
part.
Easy
That's
on our
pretty
side.
Easy.
We're kind of ahead of the game there.
Okay, so what do you do on percentage?
Well, going back to the hourly thing, we even quote loads by the hour. We'll figure out, hey, this rate per mile or this per hour.
It's going to take us 5 hours.
We kind of go against the grain on some of that stuff.
And in this case, kind of helped us because we're ahead of the curve in someone
Correct.
that isn't doing it that way.
Yep.
So we're for it. You're for it.
I think if you're going to compare apples to apples, yes.
Yep.
Okay. My second thought on that is...
Can we back up for a second?
Yeah.
How do you think that mileage, a driver paid by the mileage, is going to look for time and a half?
I don't know that answer, but I do think it's going to change everything.
I have two ideas.
Okay.
They're just ideas. Nothing set in stone. What can a driver do legally a day on average if he's just out driving, mileage-wise?
Let's say 600
for
650, whatever.
Okay. Let's say 600 for easy.
600.
So that's 4 days is 2,400 miles, right?
Yep.
At 10 hours a day.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit. Easy math. So all of day 5, let's say they're making 50 cents a mile. Now they're making 75 cents a mile in day 6. Okay, that seems like it could be done. Mm-hmm. But how do you draw the line of, okay, now truck driver A was sitting at a truck stop or sitting at a shipper for 6 hours. Mm-hmm. He only got 300 miles down the road, and now his week, he's on 40 hours, but is only 1,200 miles into his week. Now from mileage 1,201 to however he finishes off is now at time and a half. Like, what do you do there?
Well, and the initial reaction by everybody is that, oh my gosh, this is going to cost companies millions of dollars and consumers millions of dollars,
Mm-hmm.
shippers, whatever. It's going to get passed, right?
Yep.
I've got a different take on it.
Oh boy.
I could
Here
be
we
way
go.
off here. We pay our guys by the hour. We pay our drivers by the hour, right?
Yep.
And it's been stated that they get paid for everything they do, right?
Yep.
Mileage guys get paid for everything they do. That's in that rate.
Mileage rate.
So what happens if you take a different approach and say, hey, you know what? People aren't going to like this, but I'm sorry. You already are paid overtime. That's already put into that big picture, this equation. It's okay. Guys who get paid by the mile say, I don't get paid for sitting at a dock.
Yep.
Kind of do. Guys that get paid percentage, that's kind of a wild card.
In the micro or in the macro they do, or whatever what they may be. If you look at the big picture, they're getting paid.
Big picture, that's all part of it.
They sign on to do this job, and they are completely okay with making, let's say, 60 cents a mile, and they know that it entails possibly sitting, possibly being broke down, possibly tarping, possibly unchaining, all of that.
But when you start comparing things, that's where people lose the
Right.
big picture. I'm only getting paid by the mile.
Right.
Nah, it's not necessarily
Where
true.
if you compare it to one of our drivers, they're getting paid to sit in traffic. They're getting
We'll call
paid when...
Keith.
Yep.
You talk to Keith. Keith's like, I don't care. I get
Yep.
paid by the hour. I get, and
Yeah.
I like that.
Yep.
He goes, I don't care what I do. I don't care if I'm sitting in traffic or
Yep.
no. And he's not milking it. You know.
Well,
but,
we don't know that.
yeah. But no. But
Sorry,
I love
Keith.
that mindset. Like, hey,
Right.
I know what I know what I signed on for.
I need to go pick up a load that's
But
right down the street, whatever.
But big
Doesn't
picture,
matter.
aren't those guys that are getting paid mileage in the same boat?
Well, I would agree. Yeah, they are. But
So
it's a mindset thing. But
Yep.
I guess let's dive back into the fact of, are they really getting paid overtime? I think there's a bigger picture in that.
okay.
And the reason I say that is I agree. Like, yes, that's part of your quote unquote pay package, right? You sign on to do this. It's no different than a salary position.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be some weeks to where you work 40 hours a week, some weeks to where you work 30 hours a week, and some weeks to where you work 80 hours a week. In average, it should all average, or in theory, it should all average out.
Yep.
But our wages depress so much for truck drivers that's the reason for this. Or is it because there are shitty carriers out there that aren't paying their guys for what they're actually doing?
Yes. Are wages depressed? I don't know that answer. I think 99% of the people.
If you ask every truck driver, the answer is yes.
Well, if you ask 99% of people, do you get paid enough? Nope, I should make this, right? Like
Anywhere.
any
Anywhere.
industry,
But
right?
what drives that? Like, that's my opinion. If you ask me if I should make more money, my opinion is yes. That doesn't mean that it's backed up. Why?
Because that's your feeling.
That's my feeling.
Right.
That's not something that we can measure. I don't care.
Correct.
I'm going to say this. I don't care about your feelings.
Correct.
Amen.
But
Amen.
so the answer to that question is, what are you comparing to?
Right.
I mean, what about, okay, truck drivers, over the road guys, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
They're away from their families.
Yep.
That is worth something, in my opinion. What about a construction worker
They're away.
that's away? What about a salesperson who's away? What is all that worth? Truck drivers aren't the only people who are gone from their families.
Right. What about the local driver that works 18 hours, 16 hours a day?
Goes home and showers and eats and sleeps
Falls
for
asleep.
6,
Yeah.
maybe,
Yeah,
and then has to
has to
drive
start-
back in work.
yeah.
That's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
so-
No, that's fair.
So if a construction worker that's traveling and having to pay for hotel rooms and all that stuff is making $80,000 a year, I don't know what that number is,
Yep.
and a truck driver's making $80,000 a year,
It's comparable.
I don't know that answer. But
that would be interesting to dive down, because if that construction worker is working, let's say they're spending the same nights away from home. Let's hold that all constant, and they're making $150,000, and a truck driver is making $90,000 on average. Okay, is that fair? I don't know. What is this construction worker doing that's different than this truck driver? What certifications does this guy
Sure.
have? Has he been there for 20 years? Has he just came out of school? Blah, blah, blah. Like, there has to be like an industry standard, but where do you go from that
We just had this
like
conversation.
unionizing to be able to equalize that scale in a sense of, hey, you're a year one truck driver, you make X amount of money.
We had this conversation with Taylor this morning about that person that might be looking for a job.
Right.
It's in an apprenticeship program,
Right.
making decent money,
Well,
but he hasn't been working. So
worked did have a ton of, was working a bunch, but then all of a sudden, it's slow.
So
a day here,
what's he making annually?
Right.
Well, he's making 0 right now.
Well, and not only that, but he's going to be like, well, I need to make $25 an hour. Well, okay, $25 an hour gets you that, but you also only work 45 weeks a year.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but like I could pay you $24.50 and you will make thousands of dollars more working for me because you aren't, or working for us.
You would understand that, but a lot of people don't.
Right. Like that's comparing apples to apples. And the industry is screwed up. I'm sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but we did this to ourselves, being the trucking companies, when we started looking for people that we needed to fill seats or we needed to grow, or we created this driver shortage. It's bullshit. I don't know. It's not, if people would have been truthful and honest on how they were doing things, people wouldn't be leaving a job for $1,000. In my opinion, they're stupid for doing that. What do you always say? The grass is greener where you water it.
Yep.
But in theory, okay, I can make $1,000 here. Well, now the next company has got to be $1,000 higher. And now the company that's actually doing it right, and all of these drivers that left for more money are still making this amount of money. They just artificially inflated what everyone needs to pay these drivers to make sure that they have the seats filled.
Until they can't.
And now it's going to bite them in the butt if they end up having to go to time and a half, because they're already playing for pennies.
This doesn't hold true for more. I mean, I feel like it holds true for a lot of people here, and a lot of people we know. But at the end of the day, you're going to get your pay, right?
Right.
Hopefully.
What is that culture worth? What is coming to work every day?
What are the trade-offs?
What are the trade-offs? And like you just said, if I can make $1,000 more,
I'm sorry, it's
going
not
to
worth my
work
hassle.
down the street, well, it might be. I got a buddy that works at an electrical contractor, and this kid quit over $3,000 a year. I'm going to work for them. Well, why? Because I can make $3,000 more. And my buddy's like, it's not about the money. He goes, yes, it is.
Maybe when you're young, maybe, but I'm sorry, but is switching for $1,000 worth it? I did read a statistic though. This is interesting now that this comes up. People that don't stay loyal to their employers, on average, make 150% more in their lifetime than people that stay loyal to
So
their
they're playing
employers.
the game.
I firmly believe that.
They leave, they take a 5% increase here, and now they take another 5%. Now they're 10% higher. Let's say you stay at the place, in 2 years, you got a 5% raise or whatever that may be.
Yep.
You're still 5% higher, 5% higher, 5% higher. And maybe it wasn't 150, maybe it was 90% now that I'm talking about that out loud. But still, like that, where is the loyalty? And
It's changed. The get in somewhere and stay there your whole life is disappearing.
we know a guy that just came up on his 40-year work anniversary. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Like, no one can say that these days.
No, those days are gone.
Right.
Like, gone are the days to where you get into the factory and work there until you're 55 and then coast off and go up to your cottage and fish.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Those jobs are few and far between. 2, I don't know how we got on this topic. But 3,
We're talking about overtime.
right?
Yeah, but it's a good one though, because it's probably something a lot of people struggle with.
But 3, back to overtime. I think we all agree that it's fair.
If you want to compare apples to apples, then you need to break it out over time.
But how do you compare apples to apples against different industries, in my opinion?
I don't know that answer.
That's tough. Could you compare apples to apples in trucking industries? But then you have to break it out into private fleets and for hire fleets. And where do you draw the line? And is it just going to be, hey, everyone's getting overtime now and it's going to be a free-for-all?
Well, don't you think? I don't know how that's going to look.
Me either. We didn't know how e-logs were going to look, and we figured that out.
Yeah. We didn't know how hourly pay was going to work, and it works out right.
It's like everything. It's got its headaches, and you got to trust your guys and trust your people.
But if this overtime law passes, it makes it a pretty easy transition for
us.
So there's probably people out there saying, well, why don't you pay your guys overtime?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Because it wasn't an industry standard.
It's not an industry standard. Our guys still make
above market wages.
Yeah.
And above yearly earnings. I mean, our guys make damn good money. Will it be brought up after this podcast? I'm sure it's going to. And that's
when you think overtime's a good thing, how come you're not paying us overtime?
Yeah.
This is a shitty answer, but because I don't have to.
Yep. Right now.
But because our wages are still, like you said, above market, and our guys make a good living.
That brings up another thing. Do you think people are going to adjust wages, like companies?
Yes.
Oh,
you think that like
everything is going to change?
Your $30 an hour guy is now going to be a $20 an hour guy?
Yes. I don't think because they're going to pass an overtime bill that people are going to make more money.
Right. No, there's going to be...
They'll find ways.
Well,
it's all going to have to be adjusted.
Think about that with every bill. There's a loophole with everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's... If you can find a way to do that, people are going to do it. And then once one person finds out, next person, and
yeah, it's great in theory. And if you, like I said, you want to compare things, it's a great level playing field. Everybody over 40 is going to make the time and a half.
Excuse me.
But I don't think it's going to increase wages the way
long term.
The way the initial reaction is going to be taken.
Do you think that it increases or makes the drivers' lifestyles better? Do you think at any
maybe
point,
in their mind, I don't know.
Do you think at any point during this or in the future now, if this bill passes, the drivers would be able to work a 40-hour week and live the lifestyle that they are living on a 65-hour week?
I doubt it.
I
don't think so.
Do you think it's a wage thing, or do you think it's...
I think the wages will go down, to be honest with you. I don't...
Yeah.
The wages are going to have to go down.
Right.
If you're already... We're going to use general numbers here. If you're already allocating 30% of your income to driver wage, and then you got benefits and all this stuff, and now say you're at 40%.
Right. What else can you cut?
It's still got to be at like the 40% level, right? It can't go to 50.
No, unless something drastically changes.
But that'll still stay at that same percentage.
It would still stay at the same percentage, but your income would be higher. So you could afford to pay them higher if other things increase or decrease. What that does is these pair of shoes cost double. Mm-hmm. Your jeans cost double. Your groceries keep going up. Mm-hmm. I don't know how many times in the last 6 months I've heard the price of groceries. Mm-hmm. Hey, look at this. I used to spend $100 a week to feed my family. Now I'm spending $175.
Yeah.
But
things always sound great in theory.
Yep.
But sometimes you just got to slow down, look at the big picture, and evaluate from there. And what's good for you may not be good for me, right?
What's the saying? What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah. Wow, old Mother Hubbard there.
Right.
So
speaking of old Mother Hubbard, where's Jeff this week?
Where's Jeff? I don't even know. He's in Pennsylvania, but we got to get some pictures of him.
Yeah.
Do you want to introduce what we're going to be doing?
Yeah, we'll do a kind of a Where's Waldo, but it's going to be Where's Jeff or whoever. This week it's Jeff, one of our drivers. They'll send in a picture from the road. You got to watch the podcast to see the picture of where he is, and then submit your answer if you know, and you'll be entered in for a chance to win something.
Some cool shit. Pardon my French.
You're going to have to check explicit on this one.
Yep. I always do anyways.
Oh, okay.
Just to be safe.
All right.
In case we forget a beep
We got
or
the
something.
bleep button.
I'm out of steam.
Yeah.
That
was a lot.
I don't feel like we were super passionate about it, but
I got pretty heated there for a second.
it's
I learned a lot in 20 minutes. I'll just say that. Oh, in a good way. Like that was. I think you guys laid that out very well in a
We have to
very
do a
rational
closing.
way.
yeah.
So there you have it. That's our take on overtime pay, the industry as a whole, what it's going to do.
I have to imagine we're going to be talking about this again at some point.
I'd like to hear other people's stance,
Yeah.
whether they agree with us or disagree. I don't even know if we drew a line in the sand
Yeah.
of which side we were on.
It depends. I think the line in the sand that we're on, we're going to get into another topic
I
here.
don't care.
I think the line in the sand that I'm on is whatever's best for the driver and the company. You know what I mean? Like, the company's still got to be here because, I'm sorry, you can make me have to pay you overtime, but if I can't pay the bills, like...
No matter what side you're on, no matter if you are an employee or an employer,
Yep.
if it's about the money, in my opinion, it's the wrong reason.
Right.
No matter what. I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That's a good wrap right
Right?
there. Yeah, I think that's perfectly well put.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in. Continue to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Try us again next week.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.